Greetings and welcome to the pod. My name is Mark West. Andy Donaldson is a world record-holding ocean swimmer. In 2022-23, he is becoming the first to swim the Ocean 7 in a one-year stretch, and is making a pretty good fist of it, having already swum the English Channel in a British record time, the North Channel, only 4 minutes off the record, the Cook Strait in world record time, and the Molokai Channel in Hawaii. At the time of recording, he was setting off to swim the Strait of Gibraltar, and by the time I published, he had broken the British record. He is also raising money for Black Dog Institute. I started by asking Andy if he had always been an ocean swimmer.
I've swum from a young age. Obviously, as you might be able to tell from my accent, I'm not from here in Australia. I grew up in Scotland. I was a pool swimmer. Not many of us at the time were out there swimming in the sea there because you had to be a bit mad to do that. But I was a competitive pool swimmer for most of my life. I came over here to Australia about 10 years ago to try further that. And after failing to reach one of my lifelong goals to represent my country at the Commonwealth Games, we had the perfect opportunity, with a home games in Glasgow in 2014. Unfortunately, I bust my shoulder before the qualification event there and missed the cut, which was a devastating thing. But one of the good things that came out of it was I wanted a fresh challenge and got into open water swimming. So, out of adversity came this new fresh path that I've gone down.
Yeah, that's awesome. There can't be too many Scottish open water swimmers, are there?
No, maybe not. But I was pleasantly surprised when I last went there to swim the North Channel. I didn't realise just how much the sport's growing back at home. I think COVID, obviously it was a terrible thing, but one of the things that came out of it was a lot of people, when all the pools were closed, were swimming in the sea or in lakes or lochs back home. So yeah, it's certainly, I think there's been this shift towards wild swimming and open water swimming over there.
Yeah, it's a real shift over there. It's a bit different over here. I mean, in Perth though, you've got Rottnest Island swim, which
Yes.
I was reading up. I mean, you kind of famously came fourth on like 5 weeks training or 5 days training or something crazy.
Yeah, that was a bit of a wild story. So I actually quit swimming in 2016. I just got to a stage where I didn't think there were really any opportunities to make national teams or race internationally for open water, especially for GB. They had some really good swimmers at the time. And I wasn't an Australian. I didn't have an Australian passport back then. But I ended up getting sort of called up to race Rottnest in 2018 with about 4 weeks' notice. They were looking for some people to get involved in the Champions of the Channel Wave. They needed a few more numbers, and they asked a bunch of us. Most people said no. I stupidly said yes, and myself involved in this challenge, and I was very undercooked going into it. And it was a pretty painful experience, but ended up coming third, which was quite
It's awesome.
quite something. But I think the easterly winds probably helped helped me get it. That was one of those incredible years where everyone just got swept across, and the guy that won it actually broke the record,
Right.
like almost 20-year standing record, and was the first person under 4 hours for that swim. So yeah, quite experience, one that taught me that I should never go into one of these marathon swims underprepared.
Underprepared, yeah. So
But good lesson moving forward.
so you must have kept Did you keep your swimming up when you sort of retired from swimming, or did you hate it? What was it like?
Uh, yeah, I wouldn't say it's something as strong as hate, but I certainly left the sport in 2016 feeling a bit unfulfilled, feeling like I had more to give, but um, didn't really see any paths to kind of pursue. And 4 years of training was something I didn't feel like I could commit to at the time. And really, when you're going for goals like racing internationally, your heart really needs to be in it, and
Yeah,
it wasn't at the time. So I spent a few years out the sport. I wasn't really doing that much swimming. Um, but one of the things, as a swimmer, there's who swum all their life, you still have that muscle memory and
yeah,
technique. So when I did eventually get back into the water during COVID, it did fortunately come back quite quickly.
yeah. So it was all still there, and you used to be a 200-meter swimmer, and transitioning to 10K and then open water is, I mean, that's a fair difference.
It's a fair jump, yeah, a fair jump. I mean, I remember making the transition in 2014. So it was just a few months after the Commonwealth Games, and I'd sat with my coach, and we were having the discussion: do I keep going? And we came up with this idea to pivot and try open water. And there was some really good open water swimmers in the squad. Simon Hutenga, who was racing for Australia, Heidi Gann, who was also racing internationally. So I was jumped into their lane and started doing their sets, and the weekly mileage just exploded out.
Yeah,
We would
yeah.
do like a 10K straight on a Wednesday morning. I distinctly remember those sets. It was just that was it. It was a 10K straight, 2.5K with um, pool boy and band, 2.5K with arrows, 2.5K with some other kind of variant of pool, but it always finished with the last 2.5K being band only,
Oh, yeah.
and it had to be your quickest 2.5K.
Nice.
And it was brutal. I mean, I still get anxiety thinking back to these kind of sessions, but they really you know transformed my swimming, and
Yeah,
and gave me that engine and that muscle durability to go the distance and maintain form for long periods of time.
yeah. Has your body changed?
It was. I think my body has always been quite lean. When people kind of, I suppose, look at me and I'm doing these ultra marathon swims, they probably, um, I suppose I'm probably not the typical body shape, um, you know, but I certainly have seen in myself a bit of change. I've put on weight to tackle some of these longer swims, especially the ones in the colder
Yeah,
areas.
yeah.
The body, a little bit of body fat helps with that heat retention. But yeah, I've got a little bit of a gut nowadays, and maybe when this is all over, I'll try. I'll hopefully be able to shed that off again.
I've seen photos of you. I probably wouldn't be describing it as a gut, but you know. And so now you're doing the Ocean 7 all in a year, which is amazing. And I can see the world record, Guinness World Record behind you on the frame. Where did this idea come from? Can you tell us all about that?
Well, I suppose it does kind of go back to those earlier years where I hadn't quite achieved what I wanted to achieve in the sport, and off the back of that, and off the back of quitting swimming, um, I ended up throwing myself into my accounting career. It had always kind of been there, obviously, we all need some way to pay the bills. So I was working alongside my full time training as well. But it had always been playing second fiddle. And this would have been about 2016. I thought to myself, I really need to give this some focus and attention and progress my career essentially. So I threw myself head on into that. And it's like most city jobs, it's long hours. It's quite stressful. I took on extra studies, so I'd come home from work and pick up a book on tax.
Yeah.
And it was like that for 3 years. But I enjoyed it at the time. I was progressing well, but it was I was lacking a bit of life balance. And in 2019, after a few sort of triggering events, I ended up setting up and realizing like, oh, I'm not actually sure this is the path I want to go down. And so I quit my job. Um, Off the back of that, I went overseas to travel and try take some stock and reassess what I wanted to be doing. Um, and that was again great, but I wasn't really solving any problems. But where I'm going with this in COVID, when obviously in 2020, um, I had to come back to Perth. It was the best place to be. The alternative was to continue traveling, but I was in Central America at the time, but it's not the best place to be in
Oh, who knows where you might have
in
got
a
stuck as
situation like
well.
that.
Yeah.
Um, and when I came back to Perth during lockdowns, I found myself back in the water and swimming. And it wasn't for the purpose of hammering myself up and down for getting fit or anything. It was just pure enjoyment swimming along the coast, along the beaches in Perth. And it really revitalized this love of the sport that I had. It was this thing that for the previous 4 years I didn't really want much to do with. Hadn't really been swimming, hadn't really any intention to be back in the water. But I saw the sport more in a different light, and it was more as a means for well-being and managing my mental health as well. And so over time, I started getting quite fit again. I started coaching other adults, and I was enjoying the sport that much that I wanted to try get other people into it. And we were trying to coach them towards achieving goals and pursuing these unfulfilled dreams of theirs. So like if someone wanted to do a triathlon and couldn't swim very well, we would try help that person become more comfortable in the water, pursue this goal, and try get there for the purposes of life enrichment and growth. And along that journey, my friend and mentor who had been on this journey with me, he kind of turned to me and said, "Look, why don't you get back into swimming? And you're telling all these people to pursue their goals, but you're not really doing it yourself. And I'm pretty sure you've still got some unfinished business in this sport." So yeah, he was completely right. I hadn't really realized, but yeah, this I suppose unfinished business was still there. So I thought, you know what, I've been really enjoying my open water. Why don't I kind of pursue that? And so, being here in Perth, we couldn't really go overseas. During lockdown, Western Australia was like a country within Australia. We weren't really allowed to go anywhere, but we obviously have the Rottnest Channel swim on our doorstep. So I thought I'd love to give that a go and actually do it properly and train up properly and just see how I fare. Because I did it a couple of years ago. I still did really well considering the lack of preparation. What might happen if I actually give this a proper crack? So I reconnected with my old coach, a guy called Owen Carroll at Perth City Swimming Club. and told him this idea. And he just said I was mad. Like, you're absolutely mad. I mean, you want to do Rottnest, you've been off traveling around the world, partying, drinking, not really looking after yourself. Um, but if you're willing to commit, I'll give this, I'll give this, I'll give this a go with you. And so, we got our heads down. We started to work. Um, it was, don't get me wrong, it was bloody tough. There was plenty of nights where I couldn't sleep and I was questioning what I'd done and whether I'd bitten off more than I could chew. But you know, we committed to the process, and started getting fit, started getting fast, and I think it was one of these sessions. So we always train long course. It was a session one morning that it was a short rest session with 100s, and we were doing 100s on a turnaround of 105. And so this session, it was about 4 kilometers long, and it was a mixture of different things, but it was a really tough session. And then at the end of it, this 4 100s, I think it was, on 105. And so I'm already knackered at this point, and then we have to, finish with this. And I managed to pull it off. So I'm touching the wall, 102s, getting about 2 seconds rest, pushing off again, and repeating that. And it was off the back of that, I thought, well, geez, I mean, this is like the sort of stuff that I don't even think I could manage this at the height of my career. Like, this is incredible. Maybe we could actually win this thing. And so fast forward a few weeks, Saturday the 20th of February 2021, set off the shores of Cottesloe Beach in Perth, and yeah, managed to come home with come across that line in first place. It was quite a surreal thing. It was a really stacked field. There was guys on the Australian Dolphins team entered, and I was by no means a favourite or expected to win, but we managed to pull off this incredible journey back into the water.
Good win too, right? So won by a decent margin.
Yeah, won by a decent margin. It was a good sort of 6 or 7 minutes, which is quite big in a race like that. And it was a real eye opener. Like it. I realised I'm still quite strong and fit. B, I still had some hunger and wanted to pursue this a bit more. And C, uh, I recognised that sport might be capable of being used as a vehicle to do some good. On this journey, we'd partnered with a local charity called the Kai Eardley Foundation, and it's a mental health charity. And swimming had been something that I recognised was so important to my own mental well-being that it was a cause that I really thought was quite fitting to support, especially having had a few struggles myself and other members of my family having depression before as well. So in this journey, we'd been swimming for the Kai Eardley Foundation, and we managed to raise $10,000 for them, which was just truly spectacular. And off the back of all of this, I thought, you know what, I'm quite keen to take this to the next step. I'd love to do more, and that was ultimately what led to the Ocean Seven and trying to raise money for another mental health charity, which we chose to partner with, the Black Dog Institute.
It's amazing. And so I don't have the number up in front of me, but the last time I looked, the fundraising effort was in the tens of thousands. It was doing well.
Yeah, it's sitting around I think 20,000 at the moment. We just had a fundraising night last night, and the Chartered Accountants Association here in Western Australia just ran a charity fundraiser quiz night last night. So I had to give a little speech there. I was a bit
Yeah,
nervous,
yeah.
but I think it went well, and I think we managed to raise around $3,000, which
Oh,
was
that's
good.
awesome.
So Yeah, we're slowly kind of building it up there. It's been given what we're trying to do with doing all of these swims in a year. It's been quite tricky to um, where to focus our, I suppose, efforts. There's a lot of logistical planning and preparation for the swims that I think our main fundraising efforts will probably come after the challenge is done. So I'm still quite optimistic and hopeful that we can get that figure a bit higher
Yeah.
after the swims.
And so you managed to break the world record in New Zealand for the Cook Strait. That was just recently, and the aim is a collective world record over the seven. Is that right?
That's right, Mark. So when I set off on this journey, this Ocean Seven journey, um, admittedly, I was still, I suppose, quite green when it comes to marathon swimming in these channels. Or that's how I saw myself. I'd done a couple of Rottnest swims and not that much else. So, um, but I wanted to try set some pretty lofty targets, and because the idea was to try create as much attention to and hopefully transfer that to the purpose behind this, which was to raise money for mental health. Personally, I like to be quite quiet with my goals and fly under the radar like I've done in Rottnest. Um, so it's been it's been a bit of a sort of there's been a bit of conflict, internal conflict there, but there's a bigger cause. There's this issue and cause that we're trying to support on and taking on those extra pressures because yeah, they're lofty goals, and I think a lot of people at the beginning thought, "Well, this guy's crazy," but I think we've got off to a pretty decent start so far.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, and it would be really amazing. I mean, in those sorts of swims, a storm could come in and add hours to your time. So, I mean, I guess there's risk, but it would be an amazing achievement.
Yeah, well, I mean that's pretty much exactly what happened over in Hawaii. We were going tracking quite well. We were still swimming into a headwind, but still doing not so bad. But we ended up swimming into an unforecasted storm, which did add hours onto our swim over there. It was pretty brutal.
That's incredible. So, that was the last one that you did, the Hawaii swim, the Molokai Strait.
Hawaii was, yeah. So I've done four of the Ocean Seven swims so far: the English Channel, the North Channel, Cook Strait, and the Molokai Channel.
And how have you? How do they feel? Or how are they different? I imagine the North Sea would be really cold. English Channel can't be warm. Hawaii would be different. You obviously had a massive storm. How do they compare?
Well, I mean, obviously some are a bit more tropical than others.
Yeah, yeah,
But no, I think that's the beautiful thing about the Ocean Seven. Each of the channels are different. They present their own unique challenges. So take the English Channel. It's a hugely tidal swim. If you look at the GPS tracker of
yeah.
most of the people doing their crossings, it's almost always a big S bend. So that's a real big um, challenge in that one. The obviously over in Ireland to Scotland, the temperature drops. It's pretty hard not to be an icicle out there. It
Yeah.
is freezing. um, but yeah, that one I really struggled with. The cold got like it just. I felt like my body was shutting down, and it got to a stage where I was just thinking to myself, if I can hang on for another 10 minutes, I think I'll be doing good here. And that was at the 3 hour mark. It was really quite tough and demanding. And I struggled with the cold. But yeah, very fortunately, with the help of the team and some changes up to our nutrition, we managed to keep going.
Right.
Cook Strait is another one that's I suppose the weather's quite
Yeah.
plays a big part. Anyone from New Zealand listening will know that Wellington's Windy Wellington,
Yeah, yeah.
Hawaii. Given where it is in the Pacific Ocean, there's not really any huge land masses to kind of protect those islands. So you've got these huge rolling swells from the Pacific Ocean just kind of um, powering through that channel, and you really are swimming in open water out there. It's well, my own experience. It was brutal. It was like a washing machine. It was
Yeah.
horrible.
I saw your Strava map of that. It looked remarkably straight, except for one little bit in the middle, which I imagine was maybe when the storm hit you.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Strava map actually makes it look okay, and it's kind of drawing up here. But if you were to zoom in, it would look a bit more like our friend Tim Garrett's swim, where it's spaghetti lines and
Right,
going
okay, yeah.
back and forward. We've got, I think, similar head-on currents, and we're just getting pushed around, pushed off course. And there was a lot of battling for many, many hours because of those currents. It was really tough to get through.
That's amazing. And it's quite phenomenal. You've got a very accomplished pool swimming career, and now you're out battling these sorts of elements. I mean, that must have been a big change. Even just sighting, it's very different. You're used to following a black line.
Yeah, it's quite the change. I mean, obviously you've got all these conditions and factors that can influence your swim. I think one of the big challenges from making that transition from let's call it traditional swimming or traditional racing to what we're doing here with traditional racing. You kind of know the day that you're going to be swimming almost right down to the minute. You know your heat, you know what event you're in, what the timeline is. Whereas with these swims, you turn up to your location, you might be given an allocated window of 7 days, and you don't necessarily know when you're going to go. You have to wait for the wind to be right, the tides, the currents, all these different things. And so that's a really challenging aspect of this sport. All that uncertainty, the unknowing of when you're going to start. And it happened to me over in New Zealand. I arrived there at the start of February and had to wait for a month. And
Wow.
during that time, even during that time, there were a lot of false starts, or false, not false dawns, but the organizers would message me and like, oh, we think we're on in 3 days. Just sit tight. And so I'm sort of mentally hyping myself up, thinking, right, I've got this marathon swim that I need to do in 3 days, right? I better get mentally prepared. And then, a day later, oh no, the weather's changed.
Wow. Yeah.
We'll figure it out another time. And so it's this emotional roller coaster that you're on, and it's hard. You need to be ready, but also prepared and not get too excited because there's a chance that you might not be swimming as well. So yeah, it's this fine balance.
Yeah. And do you lose? I mean, as a pool swimmer, I imagine you were tapered right to that moment you dived in the pool. How does it go if you're waiting a month to swim?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, I was over there. You're not in a familiar environment. I didn't have sort of my home pool or anything to train at, my home program. So you're kind of just in this state of maintenance and trying not to lose any form or fitness. And I think that's fine for a certain period of time, but when you pass, say, for example, a month, it is hard, and you can expect a little bit of regression there, not just physically, but I think mentally as well. It's hard to kind of stay in that zone. And when I did actually get the call up, it kind of almost didn't really feel real. Like I kind of forgot why I was there. I
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
there to do this channel swim from the South Island to the North Island. It felt more like I was just on holiday. I had to get my mind snapped back into race mode.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
tough.
It must add up. Must cost a little bit with this sort of delays and everything.
It certainly does. I mean, fortunately, in New Zealand, the, I met some really lovely local swimmers there, and they just said, "Look, whatever happens, if you get stuck, we've got a spare room." And it it was actually just such a great example of the community that we have here in this sport, and how incredible it is that these local swimmers were willing to open their home to someone that they'd only known for a week or two, and invite them in. It was just amazing. But yeah, coming back to your point, it certainly hasn't been the cheapest of journeys so far. And you know, for anyone that has done Rottnest or any of these marathon swims in Australia, you know, I'm sure you can appreciate how hard it is to organise one of those swims. Have a think about when you're trying to do that on, in countries on the other
On
side
the
of
other
the
side of the
planet,
world, yeah.
and doing seven of them within the space of a year. It really has been very logistically challenging
Yeah.
to organise all these swims.
Oh, it really adds to the magic of the whole thing, really. How are you feeling now after Hawaii? Like, physically tired, I think you mentioned before. Are you mentally tired? How does it feel getting up at whatever AM you get up to go swimming?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I over in Hawaii, obviously that swim, um, I wouldn't say went to plan, but I was kind of thinking around the 12-hour mark, maybe if possible under the 10-hour mark, and it took us 16 hours. I didn't even know. I struggled to stay awake for 8 hours during my job, never
Yeah.
mind 16 hours of
No,
swimming.
that's
So
right.
it was unexpected, but it was also this incredible learning experience. We had all these challenges, things weren't going to plan, and there was all these unforeseen sort of adversities. But getting through it was this just the most amazing thing. And it was a really emotional journey. So in addition to being absolutely physically battered out there, mentally I had to really go to some deep places to pull through in that one. And I've certainly felt it over these last couple of weeks. You know physically, I think I'm more or less back on track, but mentally I'm still pretty smashed and beat up from that last one. It's interesting. And I think for me that's going to be the important thing for staying on track in this challenge and trying to do it in a year, because physically I think I'm up to the task. I think it's going to be this mental aspect that I need to, I can't get complacent. I've got to make sure that I'm taking the time to rest, recover, and properly recharge before getting back on the horse and taking on the next one.
No. Can you remember what happened at hour 10? Is that, or are there big breaks? How do you reflect on that?
Uh, it would probably, yeah, hour 10. So it would have been early in the morning, maybe around 4 a.m. I'd been pretty relentlessly seasick for the
Oh,
past
great.
8 hours. I mean, it just, it felt bad out there. It felt kind of like there was a lot of sloshing, like being in a washing machine, and big swells. And I think swimming at night time can be quite disorientating as well. And it was really interesting because I don't usually get seasick out in the water. I can get seasick if I'm on a boat, but usually I'm fine in the water. So that was something that was quite new to me, quite a new challenge. And usually in these swims, I like to kind of zone out, find my rhythm, and get in the zone, and just kind of go into automatic pilot, but I couldn't do that because I felt quite sick.
Like throwing up and that sort of thing?
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff coming up. I felt dizzy, nauseous, um, and even though we had this head-on current, we were still on track for making some quite a decent crossing in nonetheless. But around the 10-hour mark, I think we might have been less than 10 kilometers offshore, off from the finish. And this unforecasted storm started coming through. The winds started to pick up. They'd been quite calm through the night, but the winds started to pick up. And if you see any of the footage, you'll hear it. They were above sort of 25 knot winds. They were really quite bad. And so we were kind of navigating this, and our track had gone north. We'd been fighting into the current head on for most of the swim. And the skipper, Mike Twig Smith, he just said, right, or he just made the call that we should go north and see if that helps. And it did. It provided a bit of relief, and we were doing quite well. We are heading for this finishing spot called Alan Davies Beach, which was to the north. So we were kind of on track for that. But then the currents almost did a 180-degree switch, and they started coming from the north. And so the currents were coming from the north, the wind was coming from the south, and creating this kind of tumultuous mix in the middle. And we were caught right in the middle of it, right in the thick of it. And it was just horrendous. We were just getting thrown around. I felt like a rag doll in the washing machine out there. It was just horrible. And the pace just got absolutely obliterated. You know, I was getting updates from my team on a little whiteboard. And every hour they were telling me the distance I'd covered of the previous hour. And my pace, normally in one of these swims, I'd be holding maybe 4.5 to 5 over 5Ks an hour. But my pace in this instance had dropped right down, and we were only covering 1.5Ks an hour.
That's such a slog.
It was brutal. It was brutal. And at this point, I realized, let's say it was 10Ks to go. That's something that might usually take me 2 hours to do. But in this instance, if things stay the way they are, this could be 5 hours, 6 hours. And that was tough. That was really tough, just getting that news, seeing that on the board. It was just like someone had just jabbed a knife into the side of my back. It was horrible.
It's a nice little reservoir though, next time you're stuck in something like that to go, I've done this before.
Well, and that's the beauty of adversity. You go through those moments, and they are absolutely torrid at the time. It's absolutely horrendous. But if you can find a way through, there's an experience that you'll always have for the rest of your life that you can draw on. And like you say, if anything tough happens in the future, I can always look back to this and think, right, this is what happened in Hawaii. We somehow managed to find a way through. I can do what I'm doing right now. And really utilize that, and turn that adversity into this valuable experience to use moving forwards.
And so which one's next? You've got three to go.
Yeah, free to go. So the next swim is the Strait of Gibraltar. So swimming from Spain to Morocco. And yeah, we leave for that in about 3 days. So
3 days.
quite
So
a
it's
quick
it's not
turn,
much
quite a
break.
quick turnaround. Yeah.
That one, I'm no expert, but I believe might be easier sounds. It sounds like completely the wrong term, but compared to Molokai, sounds like it might be a little less stressful.
Yeah, I think that's. I've always thought it important to not kind of underestimate these swims, because I think as soon as you start doing that, you're almost setting yourself up to go in with your guard down. It is shorter in distance, And I think it can be current assisted at times, but you never know. I mean, each of these swims, they wouldn't be part of this challenge if they weren't tough in their own right and didn't present their own challenges. So I'm just going in with an open mind and being as prepared as I can. And, if we get a good, nice cam day out there, great. If not, I'll just tackle whatever we're given and try to do the best that we can.
Yeah, yeah. And then after that, Catalina?
Selena after that. So that is planned for July. And then it's quite a quick turnaround, and we fly out to Japan straight after that for
Yeah.
the Subaru Straight.
That would be amazing. I mean, I've heard stories about that. That's a pretty tough one as well.
I mean, they have. If you think of where it is, it's the two main islands of Japan, Honshu and Hokkaido, and that's the only gap that separates. I don't want to get this wrong. The Sea of Japan with the Pacific Ocean. So if you think of all the water that has to pass through this narrow channel that's been kind of building up between these banks, um, yeah, they get some really strong currents. I think it's called the Dragon Current or something like that over there. So yeah, that'll be another one to contend with. But you know, we just do whatever we can with whatever we're given.
So that's all. So that's all booked and ready to go within the usual vagaries of whether you can get out or not. It's all booked and ready to go.
Yeah, that's it. So they're booked, and I started this journey, and my first swim was the English Channel last August. So if all goes to plan, we've got them booked. Get across there. Hopefully the weather plays ball, and if all things go to plan, yeah, we there might be this possibility to complete the challenge, complete the Ocean Seven challenge within a year, which is something that no one has ever
No
done
one's
before.
done. I wonder what will be next.
Bit of rest and partying,
Yeah, it might
perhaps.
be. Yeah.
Celebrating. Yeah, it's at the back of my mind. I have thought of what to do afterwards, but I think in the meantime, this challenge is really needs 100% of my focus and attention. So I'm not getting too carried away about thinking about the future just yet, or trying to keep my eye on the ball right now.
I love your company name, Swim Clan. It's got a good Scottish, got a nod to your heritage there.
Yeah, swim plan. So swim plan was something that we set up during COVID. Myself and a guy called Martin Smoothie, who was the guy that got me back into swimming during COVID. A good friend and lifelong mentor of mine. So yeah, we set that up, and that was that platform we were using to try encourage adults into the sport of swimming and to pursue their goals.
Yep, yep. Oh, it's beautiful. I love this story. It's so good. I'm really kind of excited to see what happens at the next one. I'll be following it. Can you do live tracks? Is that something we can watch, or you've got
Yeah,
websites and things? I can have a hunt around.
yeah, we um we're still kind of finding out the best way to do it. Most of the swims, you've got this live tracker, track.rs, I think it is, where it has the little red dot pinned on the map and gives you updates every 10 minutes or however often it is. So I'll make sure to share that link on the social media, the day before the swim. And then what has been happening, obviously, when you're attempting these crossings, you've got the support boat, the guys on the boat, they've been sharing videos and updates from there, and they're all getting uploaded onto the Instagram and Facebook and things like that, so people can tune in and follow the journey. And what's another thing that's been really nice from that, it's allowing people to see what goes on and the challenges faced during these swims. It's not just, the end product where you see everyone smiling on the dock, and I think it's good to see that kind of adversity as well. And I benefit for myself, I suppose, when I'm in the water. The guys are holding up the whiteboard with messages from people that are sending them in from all around the world, and that's really refreshing and encouraging in those tough moments to see that you're not out there on your own, and people are showing support from all corners of the globe.
Do you take the same crew with you everywhere?
I I try to as much as I can. Um, I think you can't underestimate the importance of the support crew and the people around you. You know, especially during those tougher moments and tougher times where you want to throw in the towel and stop, where you get yourself into trouble. Like, they're the people that are going to help you get through those moments and provide that encouragement and react, and they know you best as well, and can help you through those tough times. So yeah, for me, marathon swimming, the most important thing about it is that it's not a solo endeavor, it's a team sport. And having the right people on your support crew is the first thing that you need to get right.
Yeah, yeah. Are you getting back to Scotland when you're over in Europe?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my mum would give me a bit of a hard time if I didn't go and see her when I'm on that side of the world. So no, I'd love to get back and spend as much time as I can there. Well, the wildlife have been largely lucky on most fronts. People talk about the North Channel and the ever dreaded lion's mane jellyfish. They're this really venomous variety that when you're stung, the usual lacerations, but it creates this burning sensation. And I copped a couple of them, but I think I got away with it largely scot free. So um, yeah, that was fortunate. But the one I was probably, or I suppose the two I was probably most worried about was the Cook Strait in New Zealand and Hawaii. So over in New Zealand, we actually set off for our swim just before midnight. That was a bit of an unorthodox thing. The most of the previous swims have always been set off at 8 a.m. and are swum through the hours of daylight. So this was something different. And we were also swimming on a spring tide. So, or for anyone that doesn't know out there, generally speaking, there's two types of tides. You've got the neap tides and the spring tides. The neap tides are typically a bit weaker and have less water moving through a particular channel at that time. So it's quite easier to navigate, whereas the spring tide's the opposite, and there's more tidal movement and currents. And again, that was something that hadn't really been attempted all that much before in the Cook Strait. So swimming at night, swimming during a spring tide, and a possibility that there might be sharks out there. So from a mental perspective, that was a really tough swim, and that was a tough one before it even started. You had these things, or I had these things playing at the back of my mind. I had a few people saying that it was impossible to attempt it on a spring tide as well. And I've been sitting around in Wellington for almost a month at this point in time. So the preparation was quite tough. But I ended up getting out there. We got off to a very good start, and yeah, it was pitch black, but it was actually quite surreal swimming out there. We had this full moon and stars in the skies, and I remember swimming along and just thinking to myself, like, I don't really care how this goes because this is something else. I was just
Yeah.
taking in that moment and realizing just how fortunate and lucky we are to be able to experience these kind of things. It was truly special, and thankfully enough, we managed to get across safely, managed to avoid any sharks, and came away with a new world record. So it was just this incredible swimming and this incredible time down in New Zealand.
I wonder will that set a precedent now of swimming in spring tides or swimming at night time there? It set the world record. Maybe others will try to copy it.
Uh, it'll be interesting to see. I think next season will kind of determine that whether people will follow suit or stick to the traditional path. Um, in terms of sea life in Hawaii, I don't know if you've come across them or seen it before, Mark, but there's a type of shark out there called the cookie cutter shark.
Right.
Have you
Don't
come
think so.
across it
No.
or the term? So this is the one that they're very nervous about over in the Molokai Channel, and it's essentially it's a shark that's maybe the size of someone's forearm. So imagine there to there. They're probably that kind of big as well, around with the bottle. So size of someone's hand is their head, and what they do, they've got some really razor sharp teeth, but they only have teeth, I think, on the bottom of their mouth. So what they do is they come up from the depths and they latch onto you. So they take a bite. Once they've got a grip, they start to
Oh,
turn round
yeah.
and they take a chunk out of you like a cookie cutter, like a cookie cutter.
Yeah.
So just before I travelled out there, one of the locals sent me some pictures of
Oh,
of
helpful.
some
Yeah.
swimmers, some swimmers that had been attacked by these cookie cutters when they were attempting the Molokai Channel, and that was unfortunately, an image that I couldn't get out of my head. But luckily, out there in the channel, I didn't encounter any cookie cutters. But what I did encounter um, when it did get dark was dolphins.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, so how it works in that swim, you swim with the kayaker, and the boat is often a couple of hundred meters away because the strength of the currents and the swell. They don't like to position the boat too close to the swimmer in case it gets like swept into them. So I was swimming along, and the sun was going down. It was dark, and I heard it before I could see it. I just heard these dolphins and the sort of screeching sound. And then all of a sudden, they were kind of diving underneath and playing about and reaching and on their backs. And
Yeah.
again, like New Zealand, it was just one of these moments where, well, initially I was crapping myself, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
after I recognised that it was dolphins, it settled down, and it was just really special to see that and to experience something like that. That's something that a
No, that
lot of
doesn't
people,
happen. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people would pay for something like that.
Absolutely. Was that near the end of the swim after all the horrors of the middle?
It was relatively close to the start,
Okay.
so it was just after the sun had gone down. So I could still see them. I'd see these big grey shapes and hear the screeching, which was really.
Yeah.
Um, and they followed me for a good sort of 10 minutes. They were probably thinking, "What's this guy doing
Yeah.
out here at this time? This guy's crazy." And then they disappeared off and returned a sort 40 minutes later. It was quite.
Oh, wow.
It almost felt like they were checking in.
Yep.
Just, this guy's still here, and still okay.
Yeah, yeah. Did you ever see any sharks in Rottnest? Because I know that the swim there the other year was cut short because of shark sighting.
Not in Rottnest, thankfully. Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, you kind of know. Obviously, you're in their environment, so you know that there's a possibility of it. I never, funnily enough, I never get too nervous with Rottnest, um, or haven't in the past. I've done it now twice as a solo and maybe 3 or 4 times in a team, and it doesn't really bother me because there's so many boats out there at that time, and I think the all the propellers, all the metal, all the noise is probably something that's gonna push them away and distract them, or yeah. I generally feel quite safe, and if something were to happen, the boat's right there, and you just climb out. The opposite of that was in Hawaii. So after the dolphins disappeared, a bit of time passed, and I think it would have been about 11 p.m. at night. I saw this grey object floating underneath, and I was waiting. I was thinking, right, did I just see that? I was waiting and I was waiting. I was waiting for these dolphin screeches, but they weren't there. My heart sunk, and I was like, "Oh my god, I think that's a shark. I think that's a shark." So I'm swimming along, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, "What do I do? What do I do?" And it was the hardest thing, to fight your instincts and basically crap yourself there in that moment, because what could I have done? I was swimming along. I was in the middle of this marathon, this channel swim. I've got a kayak beside me, but the boat is sitting 100, 200 meters away. So it's not like I can swim over to the boat and climb out. They're always moving. They can't hear me. The kayaker's there. I can't exactly push him off and climb on the kayak. So I did. I just had to stay calm, and try not to worry, because animals, a lot of them have that sort of additional sense, and they probably can sense fear or heart rate rising and panicness. So I just ended up thinking, right, stay calm. Kayak's got the shark shields. I'm gonna go hug the kayak and just like swim up to it as close as I can. And so that's what I did. And it had these big 2 rods floating underneath, and I was really right in, next to the kayak. And the kayaker, I never said anything to him, but I think he thought I was wanting to push across, so he started like paddling off to the left.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
It's
no,
like,
no,
no,
wait,
it's not what we're doing.
stay with me.
Wow.
But thankfully, it kind of disappeared off, and maybe it was just curious to see what this person is, and when he realised it wasn't a seal, disappeared
Yeah.
off.
Well, I suppose it probably was a shark. You saw
Yeah,
something, and that's probably what it was. That's pretty scary.
live to tell the tale,
You
though.
live to tell the tale, so all's well that ends well. That's awesome. Thank you so much to Andy Donaldson for taking such a long time to talk about his Ocean Sevens challenge, and congrats on the amazing achievements so far. You can follow Andy's journey on his Facebook and Instagram page, and you'll also be able to sponsor him from there. I've linked to those websites at www.thepodpodcast.net. That's www.thepodpodcast.net. Thank you very much for listening in. I'll catch you next time on the pod.